Hello and welcome to PiscesMoon Astrology. I'm your astrologer, Kate Leonard, and I'm excited to explore the stars with you. Hello and welcome. I want you to dig out your emotional support blankie or maybe pour a stiff one. We are in for a week of hard angles. And yeah, it's going to be a doozy. So get ready. We are talking about the week of August 18th through August 24th. Let's get into it. What's going on? We've got to count them 2 T-squares this week. And what that means, if you're newer to astrology, T-squares are when 3 planets form a certain kind of triangle. I'm not sure if there's a name for that kind of triangle or not, but anyway, they form a certain triangle. And what really is significant to us is 2 of the 3 planets will be in opposition to each other. And so that's always a tense situation that requires some negotiating to find compromise and balance. And both of those planets are making a square, which is a tense aspect, to a 3rd planet. So we've got this unbroken triangle circuit of energy between 3 planets, and none of it's super comfortable, right? But I don't want you to get worried about this. The point of knowing what's coming up cosmically is not so everybody can run and hide under the bed, although if you're that kind of person, this week wouldn't be a bad week to do that. But don't. We talk about these things so that we can be prepared for the energy. I fully believe that there is no cosmic situation that doesn't have gifts to bring. They may be hard-won gifts, as they might be this week, but they're still gifts. And the point is not ever to be afraid of the planets or the cosmic energy. I want you to keep in mind that these planets have been circling and talking to each other and interacting for our whole lives, right? They've been up there longer than we've been down here. So we've experienced these planets mixing it up before, and the world didn't stop turning, and we didn't go, whatever terrible thing. We didn't go do some terrible thing, right? We're still here and we made it through. And we will make it through better and more easily if we're prepared. So even though this week is going to be a little frustrating, I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's going to be very frustrating. It still has its gifts and they're still available to us, and they're going to be easier to get at if we know what we're looking at. So let's jump right into it. So just the quick preview, on the 18th, we get the first T-square, and that's going to be between Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. So Venus and Jupiter are considered positive planets. Saturn, not so much. However, I happen to like Saturn quite a lot and think he gets a pretty bad rap. So we're going to talk about that one. There are some other complications that come in to these fairly positive planets getting together, and I'll explain that in just a minute. On 8/19, then, we go into our second T-square. Venus, Jupiter, Saturn starts first, but it is still going to be happening when we go into our second one the very next day. And that one is going to be the full moon. So any full moon is an opposition between the sun and the moon. And those 2 planets are going to be squaring unpredictable Uranus. Okay, so what could go wrong? Well, we won't know because it's unpredictable, right? So let's talk about this. Let's break this down a little bit. So the first T-square is Venus in Virgo. So let's just stop right there and talk about how oddly placed that is. Venus is the goddess of love and passion and all things sensuous, right? And Virgo is the virgin. She is very pristine, right? So Venus in Virgo is already slightly uncomfortable, okay? It doesn't make her bad. It's not like, the end of the world, but she's not her most comfortable self going through the land of the Virgin. She is then squaring Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn, we know, rules limitation, rules boundaries. So we've got this uncomfortable Venus sitting in Virgo, making this opposition to Saturn. So she's kind of getting limitation all over the place, right? Venus wants to just like group hug or more and, everybody be happy and let's have a groovy time. It's going to be wonderful. And Virgo's like, maybe not so much. Let's put some limits on that. And Saturn's like, yeah, I'm all about limits, right? Let's rein this in a little bit. Let's move a little bit more slowly. So you can see where this is a little bit tense. What could this mean to us? Well, first, look and see where Virgo is in your chart. That's going to give you a big hint about where you may be feeling frustration. Okay, so that'll be specific to you and your experience. But in general, we may be feeling restricted in some ways around love, around friendships. All kinds of relationships are ruled by Venus. She's sisters, women in general, but she's also art and creativity. She's leisure activity, comfort. She's beauty. So in some way, however that plays into our charts, we may be finding that we're feeling a little bit cramped, right? Like I want to be madly in love with you. Let's say it's a relationship, right? Like I am ready to go. Like I want to do this thing. And yet there's something that's causing restriction of some sort. So we're feeling like, no, I want to move forward with this relationship, or I want to move forward with this art project. And there's just something that's telling Venus to slow down, pay more attention to detail, build a more solid foundation. And Venus is really not about all of that stuff, right? So we've already got the first sort of tense aspect going on. Now, at the same time, both Venus and Saturn are making a hard aspect to Jupiter, the planet of expansion. Right? Saturn wants to restrict and set boundaries, and Jupiter wants to make bigger and expand and have this sort of far-reaching, visionary sort of spirit behind whatever he's doing. And he's in Gemini right now. So Gemini is about communication. It's about socializing. Venus loves all of that stuff. She wants to communicate and socialize. And so does Jupiter. But we've got Saturn, right? Saying, no, we're not going to expand. And so they're a little bit at odds. So the frustration around wherever these planets are hitting in your chart, and look at those houses, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini. These have a lot to do with communication, relationship, creativity. Pisces is about spirituality, as is Jupiter, wisdom and spirituality. So look at these areas, see where this is hitting in your chart, and expect frustration. Expect some kind of push-pull sort of energy, where it's like you want to take off, you want to launch, you want to feel all the feels, and yet Saturn is just like kind of, no, I don't want to. We're not doing it that way. We've got to work a little bit harder at setting our foundation. Put on top of that, Venus not being comfortable in Virgo. Jupiter is also not comfortable in Gemini. Saturn doesn't love being in Pisces. Pisces is the ocean ruled by Jupiter, right? Pisces is expansiveness. There are no boundaries in the ocean, and Saturn really doesn't like that at all. Saturn is not happy if the walls aren't there and made of steel. And so we've just got really conflicting energy. So what do? We try to find those compromises. This isn't going to be simple at all because we've got this three-way thing going on, right? How do we work on our relationships or our art projects? Or it could be, depending on where it hits in your chart, it could be work projects, career things with family or friends, relationships of any kind, professional, familial, whatever. How do we move forward with those things, those relationships and projects? How do we expand but still satisfy Saturn and move slowly enough so that we are making sure we have this firm foundation? It's gonna take some thinking, right? It's gonna take some navigating, but these planets are in a perfect triangle. The angles are hard. We've got some sharp corners we've got to navigate, right? But I always say that where there's relationship, there's room for communication. There's room for compromise. This week's energy, it's just going to take a little bit of effort to get there. So give yourself time. Be patient with yourself and be patient with other people. Keep in mind the key words here: expansion, foundation, relationships, communication. How do we grow slowly while building a solid ground underneath us? If we can find this perfect kind of formula, right, to honor the energy of all of these planets, then we will move ahead. We will create something that is potentially much better than if we had had a sort of more fun, Venus-y kind of week. We're making something solid here. What comes up with Venus and Saturn a lot is maturity. So as much as new love, new projects, new art, new friends, all of that kind of stuff is super fun and wonderful. And we all want that energy in our lives, right? For it to last, we need it to mature, right? That sense that you can't be in the honeymoon phase forever. As much as we would kind of all love to do that, it just isn't real, right? That honeymoon, sipping, what do people sip on beaches? Mai Tais or something? That let's sip Mai Tais on the beach all day because we're on our honeymoon. I know that's not what you're doing all day if you're on your honeymoon, but you get what I'm saying, right? It can't be all mimosas on the beach. For it to last, for us to make it to that 50th anniversary, we need to let this relationship mature. And that's sort of the spirit we're looking at this week. So fun, not as fun as we'd like. Frustrating for sure. When there's a T-square, and we've got two, this is only the first one, right? When there's a T-square, we are going to go through frustration. So just prep for it. And also give yourself time to take time outs, right? If it's not time to talk to that person or approach that art project or whatever it is, take a minute. Right? You don't have to do it right now. Saturn will support you in that. Saturn will let you set those boundaries and go, you know what? If I talk to you anymore right now, I'm going to punch a wall. Okay? Saturn will support you in setting the boundaries so that you can take the time and navigate the angles of this triangle. And I actually wish that right there was enough, right? Doesn't that seem like enough? I think it does. But the very next day, while this is all still going on, so we're still doing that triangle. Don't lose track of that one, right? We're still doing that triangle. And then we get the full moon on the 19th. Okay, so the full moon is interesting. Again, Nothing to be afraid of. That sun-moon opposition happens every single month. You have lived through this. We have all lived through this every single month of our lives. So no big deal in a sense, but it is an opposition. And because it's going to be part of this T-square, it's going to be a little bit more dramatic, okay, than the normal month-to-month full moon. What is the full moon? The sun is how we express outwardly. It's our outward persona. It's fame. It's public recognition. It's standing in our glory. It's shining in the world. The moon is the opposite of that, right? The moon is our inner truth. It's our emotions. It's the deep feely places, right? The moon, by the way, is also our body. So during any full moon, be aware that one of the possibilities is that we sort of are so expressive outwardly that we burn out our bodies in some way, that we overtax our bodies. Or that we feel during a full moon that we really need to take care of our bodies in a way and make them center stage because, of course, the moon is at full light at that time. So the body kind of takes, the body is what we're looking at in a sense. Okay, so there's always this conflict, this opposition between how we are expressing ourselves outwardly and our inner truth, emotions, feelings, all of that kind of thing, right? Okay, so where is all of this happening? The sun is super strong during this full moon because he's in Leo, the sign that he rules. He is very comfortable in his sign. The moon is in Aquarius. So look for these two signs in your chart. Those house topics are going to give you some ideas about how this is going to be impacting you. And so far, I would say this is, like I've already said, this is not such a big deal, right? It's just a full moon. And the outward expression, the sun, is going to be very strong. So do consider that your need to express outwardly, to be seen, to be recognized, to be rewarded, okay? That's another thing. The sun also, especially in Leo, is like, give me my due. I want to be, I thank you. I accept this award. I want to thank my agent. That whole thing, like, I want to be honored for what I do. I want to get the awards. I want to be recognized. All right. So that may be pulling you really hard right now. And that's in opposition to something internal. So this is what I want us all to be thinking about. Are we so intent on recognition, fame, standing in the spotlight, being acknowledged, all of that kind of thing? Are we so intent on that outward expression that we're neglecting our feelings, our inner truth? That is very possible this month. And to grapple with this opposing energy, it'll be really important to kind of give yourself a minute to stop, think about it. Is your outward expression aligning with your deeper truth? There might need to be some adjustment, some balance found. Or are you spending so much time outwardly with big energy and, doing all the stuff out in the world that you're wrecking your body, right? Are you exhausted? Are you mentally fatigued? Those kinds of things. You may need to find some balance there. Now, at the same time that we're having this opposition of sun and moon, they are both squaring Uranus in Taurus. Okay, Uranus. Unexpected, kaboom, what just happened? Oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. That's what Uranus is, right? It's like the cosmic monkey wrench. So we're just in that space of like, I don't know if my outward stuff is aligning with my inner truth. And Uranus goes, yeah, well, what about if this thing happens that you never expected, right? The good thing about this, and like I said from the very beginning, this is not going to be easy. When that monkey wrench gets thrown in, you're going to be like, what the heck, right? What is going on here? I'm already dealing with enough, right? This is what we're going to be seeing. And we're going to be saying it in that kind of tone, right? It's going to be like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? Again, Saturn's in this mix. Give yourself some time. Let yourself go take a minute, right? And give other people time too. I think that's something that we kind of overlook in this. Venus is about relationships, right? So yes, of course, you are mostly responsible for you. Yes. But if you see that a situation is kind of headed south in some way, and it's not so much you're not feeling so out of control or whatever, but you're seeing the other person escalate, take a minute. Take a minute because they need the minute, even if they don't know. Maybe they weren't brilliant enough to listen to my podcast, right? Maybe they haven't heard this information. So take a minute out because they might need the minute out. Is that your responsibility? Yeah, kind of. If you want to move ahead in a way that comes out well for both of you, right? If you want to get good results, taking care of the other person is sometimes our job. So I want you to think about all of these things all together, all right? I think the biggest downside is that, one, we're not going to move through things as quickly as we would like. Saturn is in this mix, and we are going to go slower than we want to go. Venus in Virgo is also a little bit of that, right? She's, like I said, going, the lusty lady going through the land of the Virgin, right? She's got restrictions there as well. She's not feeling it. I'm less worried about the full moon. I'm not worried about any of it, but I'm less sort of I don't know, in a tizzy. I don't know what to say about the full moon. I think there is going to be some realigning of how we're expressing ourselves publicly out in the world. I think that Uranus is going to sort of force us to re-examine who we are out there and to really look at, is that person, is that version of us aligning with our deepest truth? I really think that's what Uranus is coming in to do. But it's not just going to come in like some little tap on the shoulder and go, excuse me, maybe you should look at your inner truth. No, it's going to be like a giant monkey wrench comes flying at your head, right? And you're going to be like, oh, wait a second, I have to look at this differently. So just know that, have a catcher's mitt ready to grab the monkey wrench. I don't know. Just know that it's going to happen. Something unexpected. Uranus brings freedom. That is like one of the key themes that comes up around Uranian energy, right? Freedom, the desire for freedom. And what is this full moon sun, inner outer alignment about? It's sort of being free to align our inner and outer worlds so that they're representing us, but truthfully us, deeply us. I mean, it might be a pain in the you-know-what to get there, but how beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? It's the same with the other T-square going on, right? The Jupiter, Venus, Saturn T-square. We may not be moving forward in that relationship or project the way we'd like to be, at the speed we'd like to. Because Jupiter, it's like, let's expand, let's get big, right? And Saturn's like, no, foundation, let's work hard on that foundation. But ultimately, what relationship do you want to be in? Do you want to be in one that's flimsy and falls apart? Or do you want to be in one that's built solidly and that's going to last? I want you to look at the energies this week as being about maturity and aligning with our truth, with our deep truth, right? These are wonderful outcomes. I just don't think it's going to be that fun getting there. I think there's going to be a lot of frustration. So go into the week knowing that and have your strategies ready for dealing with it. There was a lot of this kind of frustration energy last week. So if you made it through last week okay, this week's going to be probably a little more of that. I don't want to exaggerate and steer you wrong. It's going to be a little bit more of that kind of sort of tense, frustrating energy. But I also think the payoffs are going to be profound. Now, with all of that said, Mercury's still retrograde, so that's still going to be going on. And the other thing, Mars is still in the mix a little bit. It's moving out of the exact conjunction that we and the exact square that we were dealing with last week, but it's still there. It's close enough. So when the frustration is happening, could there be blow-ups? Could there be some angry words? Could we have arguments with others or with ourselves, right? Sometimes I'm much meaner to me than I am to other people. So with Mars still in proximity to all of this stuff going on, as we get frustrated, could that come out as anger? Yes, it could. Again, I think the payoffs are big. I think the chances that we're going to go through frustration and not have the most easygoing kind of happy week. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. But I do think the payoff is really big. And I think we're going to be ultimately better on the other end of all of this. So I hope that's helpful. I never mean astrology to be a scary thing. I always hope that it just helps us prepare and be more ready to really get the gifts of the planets. Thank you, as always, for listening. Please do all the things and please share the podcast. Right now, that matters so much for this to actually kind of get off the ground. So if you would share it, that would be fantastic. I'll just be holding good thoughts for all of us to get through this week as gently as possible. So now go out and seize the energies of the stars. This is my wish for you always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you next week. Or I'll talk to you next week. Bye.